안녕하세요. 매일매일 운동하기를 실천하고 있는 동탄 왕코입니다. 오늘은 4월 30일, 4월의 마지막 날이죠. 날씨가 많이 흐립니다. 근데 그 공기가 비가 와서 그런가 공기가 되게 맑습니다. 그래서 멀리까지 되게 뚜렷하게 보여요. 나는 내가 시력이 좋아진 줄 알았어. 아주 좋습니다. 네, 식물이 다 죽어갑니다. 이제 며칠 안 남은 것 같아요. 일단은 몸 상태가 허리 아픈 거 없고요. 여기 목 살짝 땡기긴 하는데 이 정도는 뭐 그냥 근육통 평소에도 있었던 정도고 해서 오랜만에 이거 바벨 무거워. 이걸 하도록 하겠습니다. 팔굽혀펴기도 하고 다 하다가 마지막에 이걸 할 거예요. 역시 운동할 땐 CNN이죠.
Like I said, we've got to decide what kind of country we want to be going forward. Do we want to be a country that cherishes and protects one of our most important rights, the right to vote? Do we want to be a country that understands our painful past on race so that we can move forward? Not pretend it didn't exist, not say, oh, we can't look back. Y'all know better than that. Tim Scott, you know better than that. Come on, man. We've got to decide which country we want to be. A lot to discuss in this program. In the hours to come, we have breaking news on the investigation into Congressman Matt Gaetz. The Daily Beast reporting now on what's being called a confession letter. Right after this break. Stay with us. This is CNN Breaking News. Hello, I'm John Force at the CNN Center with breaking news from northern Israel, where dozens have died at a religious event and dozens more injured. At least 20 are reported in a critical condition. Many were packed in a narrow alleyway and were crushed during a stampede. Officials say the injuries were the result of overcrowding and not by the collapse of any structure on site, as earlier reports indicated. Dov Mezal is the co-founder and vice president of operations for the rescue organization United Hatzalah. He's on the scene in Mount Meron and he joins us now on the phone. Dov, thanks for taking the time for being with us. From the information you have at this point right now, do you know how many have actually died here? What's the confirmed death toll and how many people have been hurt?
So, good morning from here, early morning on the mountaintop of Meron. At the moment, they're talking about 38 people who were killed in this incident, and approximately 50 who were injured in this crowded disaster.
Yeah, there were the early reports that there was some kind of structure which had collapsed, and that was sort of the reason why so many people had been hurt, that may have triggered a stampede, but that appears not to be the case. Do you know what the trigger was for the stampede that crushed so many people?
So the nature of this event, this Jewish holiday here, is approximately between 50 or 100,000 people at a very small geographical mountaintop in a historical tomb. And what happens is it's just many people crowded in a very small area. And at a certain point, so there's a staircase that goes down that to a certain point on the mountain there is obviously being investigated by the police now to see exactly what happened there. But it just seems that it just was thousands of people being pushed down this steep staircase, and they simply crushed each other.
So you said there was up to 100,000 people in attendance at this event?
It's an event, yeah. There has been approximately, they were estimating anywhere between 50 and 100,000 people on this mountain. So it's with many small streets and and then, of course, a historical tomb, which the people who are celebrating and coming to pray get congested in. So overall, they usually control the crowd, except at certain points of the peak. Evidently, the crowd became too tight. Obviously, it's being investigated by the police to see what was the trigger exactly, but the whole event here is these thousands of people gathered together in a very tight area.
Dov, thank you so much for that, for the update there. Dov Mazel there on the line there with the very latest on what has happened in northern Israel. And just to recap, 38 people killed, as many as 50 others have been injured. We have reports that 20 people are in a critical condition right now after a stampede, after a crush, it appears, in a very narrow stairway there at Mount Moron in northern part of Israel. Up to 100,000 people attending a religious festival. And right now the investigations are ongoing to find out exactly what may have caused that crush there of people, which left so many people dead. And of course there are concerns the death toll will rise. We'll continue to follow this story. We'll have updates when they're needed. In the meantime, back to Don Lemon and CNN Tonight.
Okay, so this is our breaking news tonight, and it is a really damning report. It's true, the Daily Beast is reporting it, that Congressman Matt Gaetz' friend and wingman Joel Greenberg wrote a confession letter saying both he and the congressman paid for sex with several women and a 17-year-old girl. Now, the letter was part of Joel Greenberg's bid to get a presidential pardon from Trump and sought the assistance of Roger Stone. CNN hasn't seen the letter, cannot confirm the details in the Daily Beast story, okay? So Greenberg's attorney telling CNN, no comment. And we just got this statement from the congressman's spokesperson, and it says, Congressman Gaetz has never paid for sex, nor has he had sex with a 17-year-old as an adult. Politico has reported Mr. Greenberg's threat to make false accusations against others, and while the Daily Beast story contains a lot of confessions from Mr. Greenberg, it does not add anything of substance and certainly no evidence for the wild and false claims about Rep. Gaetz. In fact, the story goes some way to showing how Rep. Gaetz was long out of touch with Mr. Greenberg and had no interest in involving himself in Mr. Greenberg's affairs. That is the end of the statement. I've been waiting to talk to this man about this. It's Matthew Dow, the former chief strategist for President George W. Bush and the founder of Country Over Party. Thank you, sir. Good evening to you. This shocking report from the Daily Beast. How bad does this look for Matt Gaetz?
Well, politically, it's like awful. Though with Matt Gaetz, it's hard to define how awful can be with everything that he's said and done over the last few years. In the course of this, criminally, we'll obviously discover over the course of the next few weeks or months as the case is gathered in this. But I would take his person's statement, or whoever gave you that statement, with a truckload of salt, because as we know, Matt Gaetz has been known to lie about many things in the course of this. But it's bad, but it also shows you, and I've tried to say this to so many others, it shows you that Donald Trump, just getting rid of Donald Trump doesn't fix the problem, because this runs much deeper and much broader than Donald Trump. And I think that's what America is struggling with today. I actually think the defeat of Donald Trump wasn't the end of the problem. It just began the beginning of surfacing what the problem in America is today.
And what is that?
It's that we have a system done in our country where it's anti-science, anti-facts, anti-truth. It doesn't ends justify the means. That we have a political party now that's completely dominated by conspiracy theorists, liars, and white supremacists. And a dominant political party, a legacy of party that we've never had before, that is filled with this. And until that is dealt with, I actually was listening to Joe Biden's speech last night, which I thought he gave very well, but I disagreed with a huge part of it, which is I think he has to begin to speak harder truths about the fundamental problem in America today, because we can dream of a higher minimum wage and common sense gun reform and expanded infrastructure and higher taxes on the very wealthy, all of which a supermajority of the country wants. None of it's going to happen. None of it's going to happen until we rid ourselves of this fundamental problem that exists in America today.
Yeah. Listen, a couple of things, and I want to move on to Rudy Giuliani. I think you're exactly right that we live, I call it a post-truth world or post-truth society right now, where all of that stuff, and it comes from the top, trickles down to everyday people, the Trump supporters, the conservatives. They start to create their own reality. And they start to believe all these conspiracy theories, and they're aggrieved about everything, and everyone is out to get them. And it has changed the thinking of people, the rational thinking to irrational and not truthful. It's really unbelievable. And I understand what you said about Rep. Gates, but I have to be fair, innocent until proven guilty, and I have to read the response from his representatives, as you know, Matthew. I don't need to say that to you.
No,
Listen,
and I agree with that, but I agree with that, Don. And on this specific thing, innocent till proven guilty. But as far as I'm concerned, Matt Gaetz is guilty of a lot bigger crime, which is an attack on our democracy. He's probably not going to get prosecuted for that. So Matt Gaetz, on my scheme of things, has already been detrimental to the health of our country.
Let's talk about Rudy Giuliani now. So he is denying any wrongdoing. I mean, we go from one to another, right? He's denying any wrongdoing after the raids on his home and office, but he has been connected to so many major controversies about Trump, whether he was defending him or directly involved, and he is now the second personal attorney to the former president to be raided by the feds. It's fascinating to me to see the response, because it's a deflection, and it's got to do something. It's about butter emails. It's Hunter Biden. It's always a deflection. Where do you see this going?
Well, I think Rudy Giuliani knows he's in a fundamental danger on this, because I think he's skirted the situation of the law and ethics for so long in this course of this. I think Rudy Giuliani is, I think, a perfect reflection of people that become around Donald Trump and get associated with Donald Trump. I don't agree with this idea, like, what happened to America's mayor and the former U.S. attorney in Southern District of New York, where he's just changed fundamentally. I don't think that's true. I think what we see is that Donald Trump is the great revealer. Donald Trump is the great revealer. Donald Trump hasn't caused these people to be what they are. Donald Trump reveals them to be what they are. And I think that's Rudy Giuliani. I think what we're seeing of Rudy Giuliani in this, and what happened in this raid, and everything that he's done, in the big lie that he spun out about voter fraud, and all the things he's done, and the allegations that he's made, and trying to use information from a foreign country, all of those things he's done basically tell us who Rudy Giuliani is. And again, goes back to my original point, is that Donald Trump may be hanging out playing golf in Mar-a-Lago or wherever he happens to be, but Donald Trump, Game of Thrones reference here, Donald Trump is like the Mad King. And with the Game of Thrones, when the Mad King was ended, when the reign of the Mad King was ended, it didn't solve the problem. It actually unleashed a bigger problem. And Rudy Giuliani is a parted point of that bigger poison that exists in America today.
You just said about Rudy Giuliani what I have been saying since he came on the scene as it relates to Donald Trump, and everyone was saying, what happened to America's mayor? I'm like, do you guys remember before 9/11, the Rudy Giuliani before then? He got this moment. It was awful that it happened, but where he had to step up as mayor, right? What choice did he have? Who wasn't going to give him money and funding for what happened in New York? So I completely agree with you. Matthew, I gotta go, but thank you. It's always a pleasure having you on. One day we can talk about better things, I hope. Thank you very much for helping us out.
You too, man. God bless, Don.
You too. Thank you very much. President Biden responding to Senator Tim Scott saying America isn't racist. I'm going to ask a top White House advisor how they took Senator Scott's speech. You don't want to miss that. That's next.
The world amid COVID charts a new course. Technology helps us to navigate those twists and turns.
On Road to the Future, from the way we build smarter cities to new routes for public transport, how will the skies open up new roads?
I'm very optimistic about the future of mobility.
I'm Bianca Novolo. Join us on the road to the future.
Saturday on CNN, in association with VinFast.
I want this show, One World, to be a place where people watching from all corners of the globe can understand why what happens in Africa has a huge impact on all of our lives in ways we might never even know. Because of my background, I am well aware of the vibrancy of this continent, and I want to show that to the world. People of my continent do deserve to be heard. We are rich in ways beyond the soil beneath our feet.
One World with Zain Asher, tonight on CNN.
Today we live in an unpredictable environment, and news races around the world at breakneck speed.
Our engine continues, our impetus, our momentum.
My show brings you the latest news and top news makers. Give me the facts on voter fraud.
There has never been a moment where voter fraud has affected the outcome of an election.
And we also dive below the headlines to explore vital issues impacting our lives.
Normally this theatre will be filled with people and art and debate and energy. And so now we have to rely on the two of us.
How interesting is it to be Tyler Mitchell today? It's crucial we make sense of what's happening. There seems to be some confusion, and maybe you can clear up. Where are the US forces in Syria going? And fully understand what's at stake.
What's happening now in the world is a great thing because people are talking about subjects they never did before.
Alan Paul, Tuesday to Saturday on CNN.
I'm Jemana Karachi and Aman, and this is CNN.
아,
My name is Jason Boswell, and I'm an underwater camera operator and technical diver based in Cape Town, South Africa. I normally get to spend my days out in False Bay, getting to film all the amazing wildlife that lives in this incredible part of the world. Thankfully, False Bay is one of the most incredibly biodiverse places on the planet. So I've been lucky enough to see massive pods of dolphins, maybe 500 or 600 strong. There's seals playing in the kelp forest. There's loads of bird life. The best part of my job is that I get to dive for a living, which is incredible because when you're underwater, it's not quiet. There's a nice, calm sereneness to being underwater. And getting to have that as an office is a pretty amazing job.
I'm Salma Abdulaziz in London, and this is CNN.
All right, let's talk about what the president did last night and today, and it will do in the days to come, marking his first 100 days in office by hitting the road, spending the day in Georgia, promoting his multi-trillion-dollar package of plans for jobs, infrastructure, and American families, calling it a once-in-a-generation investment in America, also addressing the issue of racism in America. So we have a lot to discuss with Simone Sanders, a senior advisor and chief spokesperson for Vice President Harris, also newly engaged. Congratulations, Simone. Very happy for you. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you so much, Don. Thank you.
Thank
Good to be here.
Okay, so let's talk about this. So I want to play again what President Biden is saying tonight about racism in this country, responding to Senator Tim Scott. Watch this.
I don't think the American people are racist, but I think after 400 years, African Americans have been left in a position where they are so far behind the eight ball in terms of education, health, in terms of opportunity. I think the overhang from all of the Jim Crow and before that slavery have had a cost, and we have to deal with it.
Simone, how difficult is it to address these issues when many Republicans don't think there's even systemic racism in this country? They don't understand that a lot of black and brown people just have a different reality.
Well, again, thank you for having me tonight, Don. And as Vice President Harris said this morning, the president had the courage to speak the truth about what is happening in America, and we have to have the courage to speak the truth. So today, you talked about this in your package. I heard you talk about it at the top of your show, and I've heard you speak about it on many nights. About the investments that this administration is proposing, a bold plan that the president put forth, and that the vice president was also out today talking about while she was in Baltimore this afternoon. This bold plan, the American Jobs Plan, the American Families Plan, is a once-in-a-generation investment. But this is what's special about it. When Joe Biden and Kamala Harris talk about building back better, this is not about going back to normal. This is about the recognition that for so many people in our country, when it comes to the economy, when it comes to equity, we talk a lot about equity in the Biden-Harris administration, that even before the pandemic, they were behind the 8 ball, if you will. And so these specific plans are designed to speak to not only what has been happening over the last year, given COVID-19 and the crisis that the country is experiencing, but truly building on and getting to the root of many of the issues, the systemic issues that COVID really shone a light on, and if you will, and peeled back the cover. So yes, racism is a part of addressing that. The economic plan is a part of addressing that, talking about equity, speaking truth to the experiences of people of color in this country. And
이거 오랜만에
the
너무
president
힘드네.
and vice president truly believe
아이고야.
there's something to be done here, and that Americans have to come together. And despite what we may see sometimes from folks in Washington, D.C., it is happening across the country.
Okay, there's a lot I want to get to, but let's get this behind us so that I can talk to you about this sort of transformational government that the Biden administration is saying that it is building. I want to know though, what did you think when you heard Senator Tim Scott accusing the president and the vice president, you sir, and Democrats of pulling the country further apart?
Well, Don, to be clear, I was focused on one speech last night. That was the president's joint address, which was amazing, by the way. Let me just tell you this. And again, the president spoke to this today, the vice president. We have to look at what is happening around America. And across our country, what we are seeing is that folks are coming together. I've heard the vice president say this often, and I'll share it with you here tonight, Don. You know, when someone is driving down the street and they hit a pothole and they damage their car, they don't care if the person or the entity that is going to help fix that pothole is a Democrat, Republican, or Independent. They care about if the folks who have been elected, the people who represent them, the folks who say they are here to serve and work for the people, are going to do their jobs and get things done for American families. And so the president believes, the vice president believes, that there is, yes, room and space for, I'm not even going to say bipartisanship, because these are nonpartisan issues that we're talking about. We are talking about things like voting rights. When the president and vice president are discussing voting rights, they're not talking about voting just for one subset of people in America. This is about defending access to the ballot box for all Americans. When they're talking about investing in the economy, this is not investing in the economy for some people. This is about American families across the board, middle-class families. So there is broad support across the board, across the country, in communities large and small, urban and rural, Don. And that is why the president, vice president, the first lady, second gentleman, and cabinet officials will be flanking out across the country over the next couple of days on the Getting America Back on Track tour, talking about these bold investments, this plan that the president has put forth for the American family.
Okay, so then I'm glad you answered that, because when we said pulling the country further apart, and the reason I thought that it was important to ask that question is because there was no administration that I have since I've been alive that has been more divisive for the country than the former administration. And to hear a member of the Republican Party, the party that supported insurrectionists and very fine people on both sides, and you know, grab them by the pee, and I prefer heroes that's not captured, and on and on and on, to say that this president who's trying to help the American people is dividing the country was, to me, I don't understand the rationale of the logic there. But let's talk about what I said.
And Don, the facts bore out, but I mean, to be clear, the facts bore out that it's just simply not true. Joe Biden has been very clear that he not only wants to work across the aisle, work with folks that are not of his party, that he's going to govern as an American president, that he and Vice President Harris are going to govern as Americans. They've been clear. They've invited folks to the White House. The president and vice president are picking up the phone, making phone calls. I have personally traveled with the vice president and seen Republican mayors, governors. Today she was in Maryland with Governor Larry Hogan of Maryland, along with Senator Chris Van Hollen and Dr. Fauci. So I just think that